Hello, my name is Dave Nadler. I'm the Warning Coordination Meteorologist for the National Weather Service in Peachtree City, and we're here today to just kind of show you around our operations and give you a glimpse at the day-to-day things that we do here in the office. So basically what you're seeing is our primary operations center. A lot of computers, a lot of monitors. We have generally, we're 24/7 operations, so we never shut down. We have at least 2 meteorologists on staff or in operations at all times throughout the day and night. During the day, and depending on the weather, on a day where there's not a whole lot of impact weather going on, we may have upwards of 3 to 5 meteorologists working, not necessarily in the forecast, but doing a variety of different responsibilities. When the weather ramps up, our staffing, of course, changes. With all the workstations that are set up here, any one of us meteorologists can log in to any workstation and do our jobs, whether it's the medium range forecast or sit down and you become like the radar operator for severe weather, or you're on communications, primarily handling the phone calls and emergency management correspondence coordination that we have. We have a very, very good relationship with our core partners, which are primarily centered around emergency managers, first responders. And I should say that we cover 96 counties in North and Central Georgia. So we have almost 2/3 of the state that any kind of impact weather, or even non-weather related situations that decision makers need weather information for, whether it's a hazmat incident or whatever, we're there to support our partners. With that, I'll sort of take you around the room. There's really no specific designation that when you come into work, you have to sit here. But most of our routine operations, day-to-day operations, we usually have forecasters, meteorologists set up on this side of the room, because most of you can see on the wall, 2 of the middle screens are off, but they're tied into our operating system and our PCs. So our situational awareness screens, where we can monitor local conditions from like the television stations, Weather Channel for national reports, things like that, are up there on the screen. The 2 middle screens in the middle, when they're on, we can tie into our workstations and our PCs. So I'll take you over here and just we'll look over Kyle's shoulder real fast, try not to make him too nervous. So I'll get over here. And you can kind of see the way our operating system is set up is we have these 2 giant or larger monitors. These monitors we can monitor and pull in pretty much any weather information we want to look at, whether it's radar, satellite, composite. We can look at obviously real-time observations. Basically anything you can think of meteorology-wise, we can pull into our system, and every workstation is set up that way. We have 8 of them here in operations, kind of scattered around the room, which you saw earlier. We do a lot of data collection and monitoring, like quality control. We have more than 240 gauges on rivers and streams across our 96 county area. So there's a lot, like Kyle's doing a lot of that right now. That data comes in, whether it's through like USGS information, but in order for us to push that information out to the public, we have to make sure that the levels are appropriate, and sometimes there's some bad data that gets in. We QC it and ship that information out to the public. Obviously, if we were in a flood situation, we might have 2 or 3 people handling just the hydrologic responsibilities for rivers and streams. If there's a heavy rain event or a forecasted heavy rain event where rivers are going to go into flood, then we obviously have a lot more, a couple more people involved in this, because it can get pretty busy. Also over here, this person we release an upper air balloon twice a day. With an instrument, which, let's see if I can find this is an instrument that's still packaged, but basically this gets tethered to a balloon when we blow it up. Before we release it, the balloon's maybe about 6 feet in diameter. Balloon's filled with hydrogen, and then it goes up. It measures every minute. It's basically measuring temperature, humidity, wind speed, and direction, and pressure at basically every minute. And we're able, on this monitor here, all that data gets pushed into this system. we quality control it and then ship it up to National Center, which they use for model data. So all the model data that we get and even the stuff that's out there for the public has to come from real-time observations, and that starts with this instrument here. There's about, I would say, around 100 or so stations across, or sites across the country that release around the same time, and we do it twice a day. Now, if there's significant weather, maybe a potential like widespread tornado outbreak expected, or a hurricane that's going to be approaching the coast in the next few days, we may do these 4 times a day instead of twice a day. And that's just to sample the atmosphere and get more real-time data with what the environment's doing, and then get that information into the models more frequently than just twice a day. So this is a very, very important part of our operations. And like I said, we do it right now. I think we're releasing at 7 in the morning and 7 at night. And we have about an hour or so, give or take, buffer to get that balloon up if something were to happen. So in California, for instance, they would release at 4 a.m. So it's everybody's releasing at the same time, technically, so that is the network. All that information is getting collected at once. Tied to our main workstation here, we also have monitors for a PC where we can pull stuff up on the internet. We can use it for communication, social media, chat, which is a big two-way communication thing that we utilize with our core partners. It's not open to the public, obviously. This is mainly for our primary decision makers and partners that we work with. So over here, just kind of take you around the room. We have, again, 2 more workstations, but typically we have, we usually break it into a short-term aviation forecaster, which is where Laura is over here, and then Verona is over here doing more of the medium-term to longer-term forecast. However, we just kind of look at what are going to be the challenges, for the forecast. So if there's a lot of weather happening or expected to happen in the next 2 to 3 days, then everyone's focus is primarily going to be on that. But where Laura is, we have 7 different airports that we actually do a forecast, like a coded 24 to 30 hour forecast for, including Hartsfield. And so there's a lot going on with that. And if there's a lot of weather that's impacting the airports, then the short-term responsibilities for just the day-to-day stuff might get shifted over to somebody else to sort of help out, because I can get pretty busy over here. Fire weather is a big program or area that we work with. Our Forest Service people, even land use agencies, local, state, federal. We within our forecasts that we put out, there's also a section that pretty much is more kind of looks at more fire weather parameters, mixing heights, for instance, dispersion, obviously relative humidity, any chances for thunder, lightning, and rainfall amounts are going to be a big thing as well. So yeah, that's just kind of breaks down a little bit of the responsibilities, the day-to-day responsibilities that we're focused on. And of course, when we are expecting significant weather coming in the next, let's say, 48 hours, we start to adjust our staffing. We might have a couple of people dedicated to putting out emails for our partners, maybe setting up a webinar to do an actual live briefing. So all of that's kind of taken into consideration every day. But we also have additional workstations. We kind of call this like the bullpen area, where we can typically, during active weather, since we have such a large area, 96 counties, at times 1 radar operator is not enough. So we might need 2 or even 3 to sort of sectorize and segment the area to focus on specific storm threats and impacts. So this area here, we might have 1 or 2 radar operators kind of working together. Just they're closer together to kind of communicate with each other. We may also have somebody dedicated as like a kind of helping out with how the environment is changing, because the atmosphere changes every minute. And of course, those environmental changes can certainly have an impact on the severity of storms and how things kind of evolve or maybe dissipate. So this area we kind of use as like an extra spillover, but definitely during severe weather or winter, any kind of higher impact event, we have more staffing we'll set up over here on this side. And then we have more situational awareness screens that we can use over here. we monitor these two screens. We're able to monitor the two radars. One of them we can maintain, which is right outside of our office here, and then the other one at Warner Robins is a DoD radar that the techs down there will maintain, but we have a really good relationship with them and making sure that things are working properly. We also have amateur radio operations over here. So if we need to pull some liaison, we have a few liaison amateur radio operators that can activate the net centrally located from Peachtree City here. I think it's WX4 PTC is our call sign. And then a bunch of nets across the state or the area can kind of link in as needed to kind of help us with communications and getting trained spotter reports from those radio operators across a specific area.
And I'm Todd Hamill, and I'm the service coordination hydrologist with the River Forecast Center. Now, the River Forecast Center is a little bit different from the Weather Forecast Office in that we support all of the weather forecast offices across the southeast, from Mississippi all the way up into Virginia and all the way down into Florida. And we support them in their River Forecast Center, River Forecast operations. So we do all the river forecasts, and then we issue them to the public and to the forecast offices, and then they put out warnings and let people know how that is going to affect their area, the impacts it's going to have. We're a pretty small office, and this office is very fortunate. There are only 13 river forecast centers across the country, and we happen to be here co-located with the Peachtree City office. And because of that, we work probably a little more closely with them than we do with the other offices. So once we put out a forecast, it goes to the public, or goes to them, and then they issue those warnings. Now, they're the ones who are on the ground visiting your communities and getting that information from you on what kind of impacts it will have in that area. And we use that information as we put those forecasts out and do that river forecasting. All of our modeling is done here in the office, and when certain communities need a river forecast for a particular point in their area, they will ask the forecast office and work with them on that, and then they ask us. They say, can you implement a point so that we can make a forecast? And then we attempt to do that and make that happen so that you have a forecast for your community. So what I'm going to show you now is a hydrograph that we look at and kind of tell you a little bit about the information that we use on the hydrograph. So as we go over here and we look at this hydrograph, you can see the different things that we're looking at. We're looking at past rainfall. So we're looking at, so we take rain gauges and the radar that we use, and we put that information into our model. And then it shows us, based on how much rain has fallen, how much of that water is going to run off into the rivers. And then with that, we get how high the river's going to go, or if we don't get rain, how low the river's going to go. And so that's kind of the information that we use. Now, we use all kinds of different rain gauges. One of the best ones we use is hourly rain gauges. And hourly rain gauges let us know each hour, looking at our radar. We compare it to our radar to make estimates. And then we, over a 24-hour period, we accumulate that. And then we use 24-hour rain gauges. Our CoCoRahs network is one of our more popular networks that we use that they'll talk about here in just a little while. And that's one that we use so that we look over a 24-hour period to make sure that our radar is estimating correctly and we're putting good information into our river models so we can make good forecasts.
My name is George Wetzel. I'm the Observation Program Leader and the CoCoRahs State Coordinator for the National Weather Service in Peachtree City. This is the standard rain gauge that every co-op weather observer in the country has. There's about 10,000 of them. And everybody, it is exactly just like the co-op one too, or the CoCoRahs one. So it's got the lid, it's got the outer can, and inside it's got a see-through tube. It's kind of neat that we actually have that. But we have this, and then we have the airport. And so we do a comparison. Literally, we are about a quarter of a mile from the rain gauge at the airport, and they're never the same. That's why we want a CoCoRahs observer here, 20 feet over there, 20 feet over there. It just makes sense. So that's why. So we have this rain gauge. All the Weather Service offices, 124 of them in the country, have those gauges, as well as the 10,000 co-op weather observers. And we measure it every 6 hours, and then we get a 24-hour total for it. And we use that to ingest into the forecast models and come up with a flood forecast for you and the rivers up in Rome. So you've got the standard tube,
Yep.
or the funnel, and then here's your tube. And
How is this measured?
okay, you know what? I actually have a stick. I have a rosewood stick that I put in here that can measure up to 2.10 inches in this tube. During Irma in Houston, one of these rain gauges actually overflowed.
Wow.
So the rain was filling up the center tube, similar to the CoCoRahs one, and you can see right here,
Yep.
and then it just pours
Spilled
into the
over
big
into
one.
this and then-
So this was
That's
floating
water.
on top, and this can hold 22.5 inches of rain, and they got it in 24 hours. That explains everything that happened. So what we normally do is we'll take this, say you get rain in here, and the same thing with the CoCoRahs. Yep, and then you pour it into here, take this off, you get the stick, put it in, you can read it, and then dump this, go back and go. And you can do the same thing with snow, which is part of the CoCoRahs network too.
Now with the snow, now you taking everything out.
Yes.
And just let it snow inside.
Exactly. Yep, you take that, and that's why we have that second can in there.
Yes.
I'll bring it out, put it in here, take this one inside, melt it. Go ahead, put it on top, pour it in, measure it. Now we know exactly how much water is inside the snow. Say you get a 6 to 12 inch snowfall, and it's really that heavy, concrete, dense snow. Well, we don't know what the water content is. So if you guys can do this and melt it, that now becomes how much water is actually sitting on the ground. So say we hit 50 degrees the next day, it melts, now we know it's going into the rivers. So, and that's why the CoCoRahs program is going to be huge up around you guys. The CoCoRahs weather observing program, as you can see up here, it's a little bit of a strange acronym, but what it means is the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. Why all that? Well, because all across the nation, we don't have enough weather observations. We need weather observations for farmers, for the National Weather Service. We need it to issue warnings for floods. We also need all this information for local community leaders so that they can plan events and see if things have changed. Maybe don't have an event on this weekend in May because climatologically that might be a bad week because of all the rain we've received. These are things that we need to get. And as a local member of the community, you can actually help by going ahead and purchasing one of these rain gauges. This gauge is about $30 online, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you where and how to go ahead and purchase one of these gauges. And how you would do it is it's actually at CoCoRahs.org. Again, it's about $30, and this rain gauge will go in your backyard or at a school, a church, or at your local business. And on the back of this gauge, you'll see a couple of tabs, and you actually have this plate, which you would actually put onto a 4x4 post, or in the case of this picture, a 2x4, and you can actually mount your rain gauge to this plate. This way you can actually hang it outside during any rain event. Now, rain is very different from one location to another. We have a rain gauge at the National Weather Service office right here outside the door, and we also have another one on the airport that's about a quarter mile away. We have a rain shower come through, and they're never the same. And we need to know where that heaviest rain occurred. And if we have one person here in Rome, we have another person about a mile northwest of Rome, that will be very important to us. And I'll show you some of the weather observations that we have across the nation. To use this gauge, very easy. You can see on the front of it, you've actually got some of the numbers in there. And what those are for, the rain will fall into this funnel, it'll go inside this tube, and this will read up to about an inch of rain in 1/100th of an inch, 0.80, then you've got like 0.40, and I'll show you a little bit more of this on the slides. To read this and empty it, you actually just open up the top of the gauge, take out the tube, go ahead and read how much rain fell, dump it out, go ahead and reset it for the next morning. If there's going to be snow in the forecast, you'll actually leave the gauge empty, and then the snow will collect inside this gauge. You will go inside and measure this or melt this rain down, and then what you can do is take the liquid from here, put your funnel on top, pour it in. That's going to be what we call the water equivalent of the snow, And that's very important too, because if you have a lot of snow on the ground, we need to know how much of the snow actually has a high water content. If the next day the temperature hits 50 degrees, the snow melts, where's all this water going? Into your rivers, creeks, and streams. That's the kind of stuff that we need to know at the Weather Service. So, if you need to reach me, I'm the state coordinator. That's my email address, georgewetzel@noaa.gov. And I usually will answer your emails pretty quickly. You also will have a coordinator for the county. Again, CoCoRahs, nonprofit. Where we're getting these rain gauges from is actually a company that makes them. They're not making any money at CoCoRahs from this. The only reason that we have this is because back in 1998, there was a very heavy rain event in Colorado Springs. Unfortunately, all of the rain fell in the mountains. None of it fell in the city, but all the water came down the mountains into the city, and unfortunately there was a multiple loss of life in the city. Nobody knew how much rain fell up in the mountains. Well, to fix that, they started installing some of these rain gauges. That's how CoCoRahs started, and now it's across the country. It's in Canada, it's in the Caribbean, it's in Puerto Rico, and with any luck, we'll actually have it worldwide at some point. And again, rain is very variable, and you can see like we have a rain shaft here from a storm, and that shower actually would hit one gauge and a mile away. You wouldn't even get any rain. So here's the nonprofit slide. We joined the CoCoRahs family in 2008, and since then we have actually acquired about 1,200 weather observers in Georgia. Unfortunately, some people joined and then stopped going outside and measuring rainfall. So what we're going to do is try to get more people excited about the program and let them understand what's happening and how this program can help you. So we were actually, this year, we do a program called March Madness, and we were 7th in the nation. So we did great for the number of weather observers recruited in Georgia, and hopefully we'll be able to beat that next year. This is what the opening slide for CoCoRahs will look like, and once you join, you'll have this access. Actually, you can look at this even if you're not a member, but it's more fun if you are. And you can see all the rain across the nation. You can pinpoint where the heaviest rain is by color, and then on the bottom, you can actually click into any of the other counties or any of the other states that are around the area. On the upper left is how you join CoCoRahs, right there by the arrow. After that, this is what happens when you become an observer. It doesn't cost anything except the price of a rain gauge. What I would ask, though, is that you not worry about who gets to see this information, because there's only one person that sees it, and that's me. And as a government organization, we don't do anything with this information. You will have your own station name, so you become the official climate weather observing site for that house, that street. If you're the only one in that whole area, you're it. And that your data will actually come back to the Weather Service. And again, we'll use that, put it into our forecast models. An hour later, boom, we come up with a flood forecast and figure out if you guys need to have a warning or a watch for your area. So this will be all the information you put in. The latitude and longitude will come up by itself. This is the national look at how many observing sites there are. You can see in Georgia, like east central Georgia, there's not much. It does show that there's a little, a cluster in northwest Georgia, but unfortunately, like I said, some of those don't report anymore. This is Georgia now, and you can see we do have a few in Bartow, Floyd, Gordon, Chattooga, and hopefully we'll be able to increase that amount. This morning, there was rainfall across all of Georgia and most of the southeast. This was the slide I took. What this is showing is basically we need more observers. Nobody reported this morning, but that's okay, because as long as people get excited about the program, and again, schools set it up for your students, they love this. And the program to put the data in takes you about 10 seconds. So it's all online, or you can actually do it using your iPhone or your Android. This is what the active number of weather observers in Floyd County looks like. Again, they haven't reported, but hopefully they will soon. So here's how you set up your rain gauge. I don't want to make anybody think that this is actually a very difficult thing to do, because it's not. The rain gauge you saw on the first page was in my backyard. I had a 2x4 and I had a miter saw. That's all I did. Set it up, put it out in the backyard, and I can move it around if I have to. when I'm mowing. Here's what the rain gauge setup normally looks like, and I've set it up on a 4x4 post like this many times. And if you want, you can go ahead and even bevel the top of it. This way the rain, instead of hitting a top of a regular post, it would actually splash into the rain gauge. It would actually splash off. Go ahead and you make sure you keep it away from trees, buildings. Don't set it under the trees. Don't set it next to your house. And if you need to, you can actually put this on your deck. If you have railings going around it, you can put it on the outside. So this is what it would look like if you had a trace of rainfall. Now, a trace is actually in between 0 and 0.01 inches of rain. A trace could be drizzle, could just be a quick shower, but a trace is important to us as well. We also use this for whenever we produce drought forecasts. So if you do get a trace, that's a number, that actually becomes a T. If you have 0, that's also a value. That's important to us. It shows us who didn't get the rain, and we'll be able to figure out what kind of a forecast to put out. So on the next slide, you'll see this is what it would look like for 4/100ths of an inch. And you can see it's very easy to read the rain gauge. I've actually been able to read my rain gauge using binoculars from inside my house. Just in case it's raining really hard, you can actually send the information into the National Weather Service as a special report, and it would alarm all of our workstations, and it would show us who has the worst rain. This would be a 1/2 inch. Again, you can actually read it on the center tube. This is what happens whenever the rain gauge actually fills up to over an inch of rain. And you can see this tube would, again, if it fills up to about here, you'll notice that there's this little notch in the back. This is so the funnel can set in there. And you're like, well, what's going to happen if we get too much rain or it actually fills this up? It's actually going to overflow into this large gauge right here. And this is how you're going to be able to read it. Right there. You can see that all this rain fell in the middle tube, spilled into here, and how you would read that, it's not very difficult at all. You would actually read this to the nearest inch, so it would be 1.00. Go ahead and dump that out. Then you go ahead, take this tube, put the funnel on top, and then you pour your rain gauge into that, and that's how you measure the rest of the rainfall that fell into your large tube. The best thing is, and I have forgotten to do this before, write down each value. Occasionally, you will forget. And if you get snow in your rain gauge, I would ask that you do not try to measure the snow in there by actually putting your rain gauge into the microwave. I've seen people do that. They will melt. This is what it looks like in Peachtree City when we get rain and snow. This snowfall, and you can see these are snowboards that we set up. They actually will protect the snowfall from the heat in the grass underneath it from coming up through and causing the snow to melt. So this is how we were measuring the snow. This is what it looked like one morning. And as you can tell, I mean, most of this snow actually disappeared from Peachtree City that morning. And to be honest, you guys get a lot more snow up in the northwest corner of the state than we do. Now, this was the snowfall that I usually got when I lived up in Michigan. This is actually at my home the year before we moved here, and I'm sure you can understand why we moved here. Now, to measure snow, it's not that difficult to do. We can go over this slide, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows what this was from. And so this is CoCoRahs. Again, this is the app on your phone, and you would just go ahead and put the data in. The observation time is actually set by you when you log on. When you create your account, you say, well, I'm usually up at 6 or 5. I measure mine at 5 a.m. If you want to measure it at 9 a.m., that's okay. Any later, and the data might not come into the National Weather Service's forecast. This is what a rain gauge looks like. Whenever you get the snow on top of it, and I know in Rome and the surrounding areas, you do get a significant amount more snow than we do. Most importantly, do not push all of the snow into your rain gauge. How you do this, I know it sounds silly, but this is how you get the snow. Oh, it didn't show up, but I am going to. This is your rain gauge. If you have snow coming up the side of your gauge, all you do is just pat it down like this. Whatever falls out, that stays on the ground. Whatever falls in, you take it inside, you can measure it, and then pour it into your inside tube. So this is how you can actually deploy a snowboard out in your backyard. Could be a piece of wood, could be a piece of plastic, it doesn't really matter. But I'll tell you the truth, if you have a snowboard and you even raise it off the ground a little bit like that, that's going to be a big help during any snow event. I hope everybody learned a lot about the CoCoRahs program. Again, it's very simple to join. It's great for families, kids, grandparents, schools, business. I know we have a lot of people that call us for the information. If you ever have any questions or concerns, you can email me at the National Weather Service, george.wetzel@noaa.gov, or you can go ahead off the page on CoCoRahs, go to the state coordinator, click it, my email address pops up. Thanks a bunch, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know.